Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Selling for Collins podcast. I'm here with Brian Soukup. He is the founder of Old Town Square Properties and really one of the main reasons that Old Town is what it is today. Brian, thank you for being here with us.
Very enjoyable to be here. Thank you for having me.
So let's get into some of the questions here. I know there's so much to talk about, but one thing, we kicked it off a little bit with the conversation when we sat down, is Old Town used to be very different. One of the reasons it's kind of progressed to what it is today is that you came in and took over with your company. Maybe it was just you. What's the story there?
Okay. Well, it begins without me being there. It begins with a guy named Gene Mitchell, who had a big vision. He was an attorney here in town, a very influential person. He was a guy that did a lot of development, and his idea and thought was Old Town at that point wasn't Old Town Square, it was Old Town, and it was a road going through there, not a plaza. And it was his thought to make that a square that everyone wants to go to. So he worked with the city to make a street a plaza. His thought was to continue the next block over on Linden, which never happened. He bought some property there, but before he got that going, things kind of fell apart. So he came in. His thought was to develop this thing. He really put a lot of time and effort in it. And that was around 81, 82, he started doing this.
So the redevelopment started in the early 80s.
Yes. And then he had it done. Old Town Square, as you see it today, pretty much was done 84, 85-ish, of which he started renting then. And to backtrack up to that point, I started my company, which is third-party property management, doing homeowner associations, single families, commercial buildings, so forth. And I was started with no business at all back in 81. And
what was the name of the company at that time?
It was called Foxfire Property Management at that time.
Okay.
And so we started that and got that, we got that thing going, and it started really developing quickly. We started developing as Old Town Square started developing. Old Town Square, they got going. It was the talk of the town. It was a place that people thought they wanted to be. Tenants started coming in. And unfortunately, though, the cost of building Old Town Square was way more than anticipated, So they had to get
that. That was just, was someone off on construction estimates? But, how is it way more than anticipated? Today we talk a lot about how construction costs have gone up so fast in such a short amount of time. Did that happen?
I'm going to guess. I don't think the costs went up like they do today. I think more what happened is there was some underestimates on what everything, when you have a remodel, you know how those things can get out of hand. Well, there's so much when you got turn of century buildings and so forth that you've got to readjust to meet current standards. That I think that's what got them.
Okay.
But anyway, so they came in and did this reconstruction and built Old Town Square, but it costs a lot more than anticipated. At that point, what's left? You got to get higher rent. You've got to get higher rent. And they anticipated getting rent that we only got a few years ago. So it was real high.
So they anticipated back in the mid 80s a rent level that we only achieved recently here.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. So it didn't work. And what happened then was CNA Insurance was the debt holder.
Okay.
And CNA Insurance, after a couple of years, it's my understanding, I'm not totally sure exactly how many, but a couple of years of no debt payment at all. And they, of course, then at that point have to foreclose. They foreclosed. They've got to go to the court. They've got to appoint a receiver. And fortunately, our company at that point had we'd gotten all the certifications, certified property manager, credit management organization. And fortunately, we're assigned by the court to be the receiver. So at that time, I'm the receiver for CNA. It's my responsibility to report to CNA, try to rent more, try to reduce expenses, try to make that project more viable so they can eventually sell it down the line. So we did that and started. I'll never forget our first day. And then, again, the newspapers are on it. The TV was on it. It was kind of a big deal because this was Fort Collins, what it was supposed to be becoming. And I remember, okay, I have to meet with the tenants to let them know where we're headed, because everyone's going, what's going to happen? What's he going to do? And at that time, I met coincidentally in a vacant unit in one of the buildings with everybody. And people came in and were wondering where are we headed, what's going to go on. And there was about 50% vacancy in Old Town Square at that time. And another 15% of economic vacancy. Economic vacancy meaning there was someone in there, but they weren't paying. So it was significant vacancy. So the people they're going, okay, of course, the one thing when you go into a square like that is one of the things you count on is the neighbor bringing in business that people that go maybe to see them will stop in your store or vice versa. Well, that wasn't happening. And so, okay, what are you going to do? Well, the good news was CNA Insurance knew it's going to take some money to get this thing. Which a lot of lenders that go into receivership don't think they're going to put any more money in.
They understood it was going to take substantial additional investment to kind of turn the ship around.
Exactly. So they were real good about it. They put money together. We worked with the Downtown Business Association. There was a commercial brokerage firm that was involved. We all worked and agreed on a game plan, which included a big one was we had some significant downtown music venues. And we had almost from the get-go, once we got some good bands coming in, we had a number of people show up. We had 5,000 people in the plaza. And that was just overload, and that went on for a while. And all of a sudden, hey, this Old Town Square, there's something going on down there. We like that. Then we had Coopersmiths came in, and that really helped develop Old Town Square. But Coopersmiths also brought the Brewfest. And the Brewfest was all these different microbreweries from all over Western United States, even parts of the Eastern United States. And they came in, and man, the Brewfest was a party of parties.
I remember this. Now, I've been here since 2005. And one of my first memories in Fort Collins was somebody saying, hey, you've got to go check out Brewfest. And I said, what's that? They said, well, it's this big annual beer festival. It's an old town. It's amazing. And I showed up, and I just remember this is probably 2006. Packed Old Town, just all the breweries giving beer samples. Yeah, it was a big party.
Big party, which is what killed it. It was too big a party. And so it kind of got moved out of the square, and we could not really keep it going the way it was. This is where Coopersmiths, Scott Smith really was the guy that really put it together. Mm-hmm. And then there were some complaints about some tenants that weren't brew oriented, or it stopped their business when it was open the whole day. A few of those, and they moved it. Gotcha. But we also went marketing things that you want to get to the families too. So the families, okay, the first thing we put in was a Christmas Santa Claus house to kids could come see Santa Claus. Then we had the Tiny Tot, and a lot of parents bring their kids down Tiny Tot and trick or treat at Halloween. Had Easter egg hunts. We did things constantly to promote. We'd have CSU Rams come down for a pep rally, and we'd cheer them on down there. It would just start magnifying tremendously.
So you activated the plaza with all of these activities, these events, and you, it sounds like, did a really good job of getting to know the tenants, getting to know these other entrepreneurs in the area, not just bringing them in and having them sign a lease, but getting to know them and then collaborating with them to do a lot of these things, because clearly it was in everybody's best interest to keep this going. And that, has come a long way since. But before we go there, I want to take a step back really quick. It sounds like you were obviously doing great as a property manager, third-party property management. When CNA assigned this to you, the receivership to you, when you were Foxfire Property Management,
Right.
At that time, were you managing any of the units in Old Town? Is that how you were positioned to be the receiver there? Or did they just see you as, hey, this is a very competent entrepreneurial person who is, maybe the right guy to come in and do this thing?
I think they just guessed. No, we had to show a portfolio of commercial buildings that we have managed. Of course, you had references and so forth like that.
So it was competitive.
Yeah. But I think once it got to court, we were the only one that was recommended by CNA at court. So it was recommended that way, yes. Okay. And I need to say, as far as all of these, when I say we, it was the brokers, Foxfire, and the Downtown Business Association, all working together to get this thing going.
Yeah, to get this thing going. But so pretty young man at the time.
Yeah, I think I was.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty old now, and it's been a long time since then.
No, you're not. But it had to have felt like the opportunity of a lifetime at that point in time to have this thing here that's, you are the receiver, and, a big opportunity, a big responsibility.
Truly. It was for third-party management. That was the grail right there. And so we want to make sure, and we put our time and effort in to make sure this thing is going to turn.
Right.
And then it got kind of crazy. It started going. We started getting tenants. It's starting to build up. And I don't know the answer to it, but CNA made the decision. We went out. So, okay, they went out. And this is about 3-4 years into it. Let's see. Yeah. 87, I became receiver. 90 is about when they wanted out. And I had a good relationship with the manager from CNA. He just kind of said, we want out. And it was a tremendous price. Nobody gets to know. You can go do research, I guess, find out. But it was a great price. So you're going, oh, man. And I got the first opportunity. But the biggest problem was, without debt service, the negative was tremendous. The monthly negative there was just, and that's why they wanted out more than anything. They didn't want any more negatives. They've got to meet certain requirements for their lending with the FDIC or whoever, or they're going to be limited to what they can lend on. So they wanted out. And at that point, I didn't have the guts to do it. I brought in a couple people with money that could help cover the negative, because I sure couldn't. And that scared me to death. But when I brought some other people in, that was great, because I then thought, but it just really started quickly moving to the point where we were getting closer and closer to a positive. About the time we really got to the positive, when I could pay off these other partners, and then at that point, then it was mine, and then it was positive, and we kept going. Mm-hmm. But it was interesting how that came together, and CNA just basically wanted out. It was just that simple. But when you have a big cash flow that is in the negative, that hurts. And even a big company like CNA out of Chicago.
And it might be easy for some people listening to this to think, yeah, what an amazing opportunity. Maybe even they think, what a lucky guy. At the time, that had to feel like a tremendous risk, because even somebody that could see the potential of what it could be in the future, it wasn't the future, it was the present. It was losing money. So fair to say, a huge risk, maybe the biggest risk you've taken in business?
It's close. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I've had a few, but that was a big risk. It turned out good, but on the other side, and a lot of people unfortunately are in that, you don't get a few tenants here, or expenses go out of control, like something that just recently happened, our real estate taxes doubling.
Right.
All of those things all of a sudden could have really turned it the other way, and who knows then. But we were lucky enough to get enough tenants. The plan worked that we used for marketing to get to the point where it was positive, and that all worked, and we lucked out.
Yeah.
Bottom line.
And talk about the plan a little bit, because you take this big risk, you're all in at this stage. Things are going well. You mentioned some of that momentum you're getting. You have some CSU events there, and that's it's Colorado State University for those of you that might not live here. There are all these things, the beer fest. So there's momentum. There's things happening. There's collaboration between the tenants you do have. But how did you keep that going and start to grow that? How did you recruit more tenants? Was it really just kind of going out there, putting a plan together and going out there and recruiting collaborators? Tell us a little bit about what that was like.
Well, the thing that I've always tried, and it hasn't always worked, but Old Town Square's got to be unique in itself. It's got to have unique businesses, not, big mall businesses. We're not going to compete with a Macy's or Dick's Sporting Goods or something. We've got to have unique stuff. We've got to have, whether it's the brewery, Cooper Smith's, which was unique. We've got to have the concert down there, unique, that brings people. Goldsmith's, which has a great jewelry place there, and things that you don't get everywhere else. That is what we try to bring in. A bakery that nowhere else you can get, or Explorado would be a good example. And then you go on, and you brought up way back when social, what was that? The number one speakeasy bar in the country, I think it got.
It did.
And those things are unique. So you want to be there. You want to be a part of that. And then, of course, now as of 3 months ago, Old Town Square, the square itself, the plaza itself, was voted the number 4 outdoor plaza in the country. Well, when you got that from USA Today, right, those kind of things really people want to be a part of. You're a winner. They want to be a part of that. Mm-hmm. And it magnifies itself. And that started happening clear back, in the 90s. It just kept going. And fortunately, it's now, I love to say it, what the paper says, a jewel of Fort Collins. And so we want to just keep it that way.
Mm-hmm. And how do you keep it that way? Are there any challenges that you're facing right now that you feel like hurdles that need to be overcome? I mean, if we look at the next 5-10 years, how does it stay that way? How does it get even better? But it is this amazing place. It is the crown jewel of Fort Collins.
Where it's going to get better that I've looked at, to me, is the number of residential units that are coming downtown. I mean, there's still commercial stuff going on, but residential, the Morningstar Senior Living that's going just down a block away, affordable housing to the south. I think it was senior affordable housing. A lot of apartments are going in to the north. A lot of condos. It's funny, downtown, I drive around. I'm usually down there a fair amount. I still see places. Where did that come from? When did they start? Right. And so over the next 5, 10, 15 years, it's the epicenter. It really is. North is where the growth is going now. And a lot of people are around that, and it's just going to intensify the desire for it, I think. Mm-hmm.
Well, I think so too. And if you look at the price points, right now we're sitting in a condo in the heart of Old Town Fort Collins. And, this is a $2 million condo on the top floor of the Cortina building. And we're surrounded by units that sold, substantially north of where this one is, under contract to sell at. So, yeah, I remember I've been here since 2005. And at that point in time, I don't think too many people thought, at least that I knew, thought that this, world of $2 million condos was going to be here anytime soon. I think it arrived a lot sooner than people thought. At least a lot of people thought. And so it's going in this exciting direction. I think like you said, the unique tenants that you get at Old Town Square, that just pull so many people in town. You mentioned Social, the number one speakeasy. If you're listening, if you haven't been to Social, Google it. Go to Social. They open at 4 p.m. It's an underground speakeasy. It is underneath Old Town Square. I remember Ed Stoner showing me that space when it was used for storage, and he said, "Hey, these guys are going to do a speakeasy down here," and it just seemed so abstract at that time.
It was storage space.
It was
our storage space, and they came up with a heck of a design. And Ed, and I can't give Ed enough credit. Ed Stoner, former mayor, he was the manager of our company for 20 some years, and he did a lot for Old Town Square, and I can't thank him enough for what he has done. But yeah, we had a storage unit down there that we were getting nothing for, and they came to us and said, hey, this might be what we were interested in, and they needed that stairway that goes next to mountain. We didn't think the city would let them do it. Well, they fought and got it done. More power to them. And doing that, they got a good deal and turned it into a really good deal. And I tip my hat to them.
Yeah. And, if you're looking at Northern Colorado as a whole, and you see, the Centera area, I-25 and 34, that's a big shopping area. The Midtown thing happened, the $370 million renovation redevelopment project. And at these different times, I've heard people say, well, what's going to happen to Old Town? This is going back years and years and years. And every time it just remains the crown jewel. It remains the thriving place. And I think it's because of that. I think it's because of maximizing these spaces, not just this underground storage space that became Social, but also you look at these alleyways that the Downtown Development Authority is renovating, these brick paved alleyways with lights. And it's so charming. It's such a adventure to walk around Old Town in the evening and just explore and see new things. It's so rare. It's so unique. And, we'll talk a little bit more about the journey from where we left off, but let's touch on the Downtown Development Authority a little bit and the part they've played in this. Now, I know there's kind of the tax increment financing, like how far in the weeds you want to get, but what would you say to that? Like how have they played a part here and kind of where we left off and to bring it closer to where it's at today?
Well, of course, we had a redo on the plaza here 7-8 years ago, maybe a little longer, and that really, of course, enhanced the square. They added a number of new pavers throughout. They moved the stage back farther, made it more user friendly. The alleyways you mentioned, they make them clean and neat and easy to walk through. They have helped us in numerous things, and we have a great relationship with them. They rent one of our units in the executive suites there, and great people, and have the interests of Fort Collins and making downtown in their heart to make it better. And so they've been a very big part. And then when the Downtown Business Association basically folded because of COVID and everything going on, they took it over and still running with that, which is very valuable also. So, yeah.
Right. And then, so there's that. Let's talk about you mentioned Ed Stoner, who's, a friend of mine also. I'd consider him a mentor. And, he was a property manager for 20 years for you. Is that right? Was it?
I think it's 23.
23 years was the number. So, take us back to, you get the receivership, things start going well. You have the opportunity then to acquire with partners the assets around Old Town Square. And then you buy out your partners. You're the sole owner going forward, and then it just keeps, this snowball keeps going. It keeps getting bigger. The Old Town Square area keeps getting more and more special. Who were some other people that kind of helped it, because it became, it seems to me, much more of a company effort. Whereas maybe at the beginning it was kind of you driving everything, and then it became a real company effort. You built not just Old Town Square, but you built the company that really helped Old Town Square thrive and really brought it into what it is today. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, yeah, we manage a lot of property, and so we knew what things needed to be done. The other side of Old Town Square is controlling expenses. So as a property management firm, that better be something you know how to do, and that's a key to making some properties work. If you can't control expenses, pretty much doesn't matter what income you're getting from it. You've got to handle that. So I think our crew, the maintenance crew, the property managers, they kept a good eye on that stuff. We had an on-site manager who was responsible to keep the tenants happy, make sure you address the problems that they had, make sure that they knew we were in support of what they were doing, and kept that going, again, trying to have the right mix, the right assemblage is tough, because if you get out of sync too much that you're not bringing a draw, this retailer may bring these type of people, this one will bring other type of people. You got an assemblage of people then that can help each other, and you really want to continue to do that. But if you get the same people on each one of these, your traffic isn't near what it could be otherwise. So
a lot of attention to the tenant mix. One thing I heard you say in this conversation multiple times was unique. We wanted unique tenants. And I remember now Ed's retirement party and going there, and I really thought it was you, Ed, and maybe a few other people. And then I see all these people, they all work there. So you're managing the expenses, all these things. Yeah, it's a huge team effort.
It was.
And you built quite the company. Offices right there in Old Town Square, looking out over the square. Yeah. I mean, pretty special, and it was neat to see all those people. It was neat to see the camaraderie and just the hugs and the warmth in that room at his retirement party, and what you've done there.
Yeah, it was a pretty full room that night.
Yeah,
we had a lot of fun, and he deserved it. He really helped put Old Town Square where it is, and he's been a friend all those years and way before that. So it's just, we miss him now and don't see him enough. But yeah, it's just what's next. We continue to wonder. You got it now. That doesn't mean it's always going to be good.
Right.
It doesn't mean when people ask me, it's one thing to get there. It's another thing to maintain it, no matter what it is. With a pro athlete, okay, you made the pros. Okay, you're starting. That doesn't mean you're going to next year, or the year after, or the year after. You got to keep going.
You got to keep pushing. You got to keep going.
Sure. Yeah.
How do you see it? If you've got a crystal ball, you fast forward, let's go a little further into the future, 10, 20 years. What do you travel a lot? You've seen a lot of places. What do you think? It's going to be denser. I think we can all agree on that. You look at this, the community that you mentioned, Morningside, going into the heart of Old Town, really. And for those of you who don't know, you can Google that as well. But that's really a 55 and older community. I think with a spectrum of care services, on site there for people of a larger age range. It is really designed for people who have really want to live an active lifestyle. If you are retired, if you want turnkey living, this is a huge project right in the heart of Old Town. Let's keep going. Age is just a number, and that's kind of the people they seem to attract at their project. And they're going to be really adding a lot to Old Town. People with time, money, and energy out there shopping, eating at the restaurants, taking advantage of all the entertainment opportunities, in Old Town Square and other parts of Old Town as well. So more density, more people for sure. I mean, do you envision, more, tech companies? Do you envision, any other changes that are notable?
I envision where it is now, Old Town Square, it's maximized itself as far as what it can do. It can raise rents, maybe to improve, more marketing, maybe, but this is it. This is the number of square feet we've got. Who's going to benefit is those around Old Town Square, because there's nothing really more we can do unless we grow on top of the roofs and continue, which I think right now is pretty price prohibitive. So the businesses around, and it's helped them over the years too, and it's only going to do better for them, to be honest, where I think it's going to go. Old Town Square is going to do well, but I think more and more of downtown as growth comes is going to do more. You
feel like Old Town, the downtown area, will expand?
Yeah. We're going to get more and more all around downtown.
Makes sense.
You look at Mountain Avenue and the price of homes, how that has gone, or anything close to down. We drove by, we were headed to a party Friday night, and we drove by a place on Cherry Street that I thought I was half the value of when we looked in Zillow, what it turned out to be asking. And so I'm losing touch on how much things are changing. But I think, overall, things are just going to grow around Old Town Square and continue. That's the best way it's going to go for the town.
That makes sense. And yeah, to your point, the real estate values too. I mean, we're sitting at 2.5 months of inventory. In 2021, we got to a point in Fort Collins where the housing inventory was at 0.4 months. But even at 2.5 months, we're way under what would be considered a balanced market of 6 months of inventory. So looking at a market like Fort Collins, where so many people are moving here every year, there's growing affluence and such limited inventory. When you take an area like Old Town, Mountain Avenue, there's just so little of it. There's so little Old Town. I would agree. You're starting to see that kind of happen. It expand a little bit. When you look back on this journey from mid 80s to all the things that happened, the work and the risk, to what it is today, what are you the most proud of? Because I know people are really proud to live here, unusually so. I think for a community, people have a lot of pride in this place. They're really all in on this community. I think more so than most places. I have to imagine, that we're neighbors. You live down the street from me. I see you walking by. I wonder, do you just ever reflect on these nice days when you're watching the sunset on, off of Cottonwood Point Drive, on everything that's happened, and what do you feel most proud of?
Well, I think it's a good point. I think for me, what I've noticed in my life, obviously a lot longer than you've been around, there was for me some good people to look up to that were here in town that I got to know as I got more and more involved in the business. And being involved in Old Town Square makes it easier to meet some of the people you don't meet as quickly. But there were some really good influential people that really brought a good vibe to this city. And I think from them, and most of them are gone now, unfortunately. But I think
who are a few of those people? I think people listening might be curious to know some of that history.
Our old neighbor, Tom Gleason, I think would be one of the bigger ones. John Borman, that was a member of our club. Dwight Gent, that had the motor company. those are just a few that come to mind that I think were very influential for Fort Collins and the direction it took and the quality of people. They were quality people. So right. I think they were a start in my mind of what Fort Collins was for a long time. Right. So yeah, good. So I hope I can carry that on. I think that's probably why I think Fort Collins is as good as it is. It's just a special place.
Yeah. I think you have. I think that part's been a big success. I think you've more than done your part, and it's been exciting to see. And I'm excited to see where it goes as well. And
well, it's all of these. Something that isn't talked about as much as I would think it would be is all of the accolades that Fort Collins has gotten, whether it's, USA Today saying it's the best place to retire, or one of them came up with the safest city in the United States, and right down the line, there's a number of things. One of the best places for outdoor activity. It's amazing how many. I don't want it to grow too much. I don't want New York City here because it is such a special place and it's growing, but it's slowed down a little. So I guess we're okay. But, all of those things really add up. I mean,
when you think about Fort Collins and, relative to, other places and, obviously some of these things are special. We're close to nature. We talked a lot about Old Town. We've talked a little bit about the rest of Fort Collins, but I mean, what do you think if you were just going to name one or two things like that make it special? Like when you're explaining it to somebody, or hey, what do you say?
It's totally for me, but I'm totally this way is the mountains. I mean, the outdoors, but the mountains just make it for me. It's just it's very special place. Yeah. So that anybody comes, we go up Roeder Canyon. If we have more time, we go to my ranch up in Steamboat. I mean, we're going to go up there for sure if I have time with people that come, and that's the outdoors, the fishing, the biking, the hiking, the enjoyment that you get, and the year-round 4 seasons that you get here. That up in the mountains and here is just special. Yeah. So that part's cool too.
Yeah. I help, people buy homes here as a real estate agent, and I have worked increasingly with people from California. And one recently was just relaying a story. He hadn't even been up to Horseshoe Reservoir or the mountains yet. He had just been to a park, Twin Silo Park to be exact. And, his kids, and he said, I just couldn't believe it. I got to pull in and there was a parking space. And I said, yeah, there's parking. He's like, you don't understand. He said, when I would go to the park in California, there wasn't any place to park. So I would drop my wife and kids off at the park. Then I would just go drive around, and then I would come pick them up when my wife would text me or call me when it was done. And I thought, that sounds like a really miserable day, but that was free time. That was leisure time there. And, we have these amazing parks, these amazing open spaces, in addition to the nature that is, 20, 30 minutes away from most parts of the city. Yeah. So I think just the open spaces, the green spaces, in addition to the actual nature and river and all the things you can do, it's just something that's really, really noteworthy.
I agree that the city and county have been very good on getting more open space, purchasing open space. And that's, I think, very important. Mm-hmm. And, so, yeah, I agree. Totally agree.
And when someone comes into town to visit you, I mean, you mentioned going to the Roeder Canyon. Like, what else? What's something that somebody who visits Fort Collins can't leave town without doing? Is there anything else that comes to mind?
I've got to double down on that. Whether Estes, of course, is a great place to go visit. If you come in Fort Collins, well, of course, we've got some great restaurants, and we've got great golf courses, a number of things that they can do while they're here. But I usually go up, take a trip up in the mountains and
Yeah.
and enjoy that, because that's my deal.
Yeah, you want to get up into nature and then just that makes sense. What are your favorite hikes? Do you have a favorite hike nearby?
The ranch. My ranch is my favorite hike.
Sure.
There's plenty of places to go there, so I enjoy that. Yeah.
No, that's great. Well, just, we're kind of winding it down here. One question I like to ask is kind of rapid fire is, people who listen to this, they might have a weekend in Fort Collins and that's it. So like to direct them to certain restaurants. We've talked a little bit about Old Town Square. I hope if you caught the start of this podcast, if you're listening, you will check out Social. I hope if you're looking for coffee, a really great bakery, you'll go to Explorado. Those are two of my very favorite spots.
They're great.
What else? Someone's going, let's go breakfast. Where are you going for breakfast, brunch?
Jack and Ginger Graham are good friends. So I would say Ginger and Baker is
great choice.
One spot that I like, and it's close to where we live. And so she loves that business and has really put her heart in it, and it's good food. So amazing. I like going to that.
The cachet for dinner too up there.
Yes. Oh yeah. So that's been a special one. We do that. Sonny's I like. I've always been involved with, I was a partner when that first started. So I have to bring up Sonny's.
Steakhouse.
They have a great steaks there and
great martinis, great drinks.
Yeah. So that's a good one to go to too. Those are, you can't go wrong. And so those would be it. Yeah. And of course, my buddy that has since sold Silver Grill, I always like to go there
John
for breakfast.
Arnolfo.
Yeah. I always like to go to breakfast there. And so, those right around the square, you already mentioned some of the places in the evening, nothing better than sitting out Cooper Smith's or any of our patios there and watching either someone's playing on the stage or just people watching is kind of fun too. Yeah. And having a microbrew right there, that's tough to beat. So,
touring people around the area and stopping in Old Town Square. So one person mentioned this was recently. We were sitting there. We were just, it's kind of we're getting into summer now, so those fountains get going out there, and it's so happening in the square, and they said this feels like a movie. They said this, and I thought that was an interesting comment because, you look around, you see kind of the amazing, just the historic buildings. You've got this huge square, these shops, these restaurants we're mentioning. And I think what really made it feel like a movie to this person was the fact that, the kids were playing. There was just like all sorts of people there. There was just so much good energy, a lot of people smiling, laughing. And that's what it is. So I guess, you don't get named the number 4, downtown square in the country by USA Today without being special. But I think it is something you have to really experience firsthand.
I think that's well put. I think that's the best way to describe, you got those water fountains, all the kids just loving it. The moms and dads around, you got people watching, I would definitely agree with that. And then you can't forget the fact that Disneyland used a lot of those buildings for their diagram and their, what would you say, model for Disneyland.
Yeah. Harper Goff, the way I understand the story, the right-hand man for Walt Disney for many years, grew up in Fort Collins and used Walnut Street as the example, as the model for the main street in Disneyland. So, people that see a resemblance, that's on purpose. Mm-hmm. And Walnut Street just kind of leads right into Old Town Square.
Yep.
It's just, it's something else.
Yeah.
It is special.
It adds to it.
It really does.
Yeah. Fort Collins is all right.
Yeah, we're pretty lucky. You know, we're pretty lucky, and I know our kids too. The last thing it's such a family. Our kids just love going to Old Town, love
That's
playing.
good.
You know, Ben and
Yeah.
Jerry's ice cream. We didn't talk about that. Just in Old Town Square.
That's a biggie. That's an important one. They've been there a long time. A lot of people have enjoyed ice cream down there for sure.
The kids, you go to Ben and Jerry's. Then there's that statue of what is it? A big bear or something outside there?
That new bear painting. And that was the geese where the fountain is. I don't know if we have enough time for this, but it was a fun story. The geese was a model from something that was up in Aspen. Ed Stoner and I had a meeting up in Aspen that we wanted to go over stuff, and a lady had a art store and a lot of bronzes, and mostly bronzes, but a lot. And she was the number one art dealer in a lot of the area, not only in Aspen and so forth. And I saw these bronzes all over Aspen. I thought, why won't we do that in Old Town Square? I mean, let's get some bronzes in there. Well, first she wouldn't meet with me, who is this guy? Well, we finally got to meet with her, and she agreed. And she did bring some bronzes down. And a side note, one of them was a big bronze eagle with spread wings. And they put that on the back of my truck to bring down. And I'm going down I-70, and these wings were so wide that it started swaying my truck as I'm going down the highway. I thought, wow, it was scary. But anyway, we got it down here. Over the years, it's been something that we've found people really enjoy. Most of them. We've had a few that people considered controversial, but they really add to the square. It's just you're looking at art now as well as the flowers and other things, and we took the idea out of Aspen that's where Aspen had a ton of bronze statues around, and we want to do the same thing, and it really is taken off. And that was 25 years ago or so that we started that, and people still enjoy them.
Right.
So,
they kind of enjoy the bronze statues, the artwork, all these things, in addition to the different art shops you can go
exactly.
Really
Just
an art scene there.
Really helps. Really brings a little more that you want to have.
Well, the uniqueness. I mean, it all keeps going back to unique,
Yeah.
and you're going to have an experience there, and it's going to be a unique experience that is hard to find anywhere else.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's what we want.
You've done amazing things. It's been a pleasure and an honor to get your time today. I know you remain incredibly busy. You remain incredibly hands-on into what's happening at the square, and to, from the tenant selection to just making sure the experience is dialed in. I walk through the square with my family, and we see all the things happening over the holidays. And clearly that takes a lot of work and isn't just, an afterthought. Clearly it's a lot of effort from a lot of people. And I know you're really heading that up, and I know I appreciate it. My family appreciates it. And I've got a lot of family in town too, as you know.
Yeah.
It's really been a joy. So thank you for the time.
Great.
Thank you for everything you've done. And, if you're listening to this, and I hope you've been convinced to check out Old Town Square. It shouldn't take much convincing, but check out some of these places we've mentioned, and just, now you know more of the story behind it. So, Brian, thank you again for your time.
Oh, you bet, Greg. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
You bet.